She boasted, "We got married without you." It was perfect. Just 7 days later, the shocking truth. Sarah gripped her phone tightly, staring at the screen in disbelief. Liz's voice, brimming with excitement and triumph, echoed in her mind. "We got married without you." It was perfect. The words dripped with a sweet venom that tainted Sarah's heart. Perfect? How could it be perfect if she wasn't there? The sting of betrayal pierced deeper as she fought to swallow the conflicting emotions swirling within her. Every day of her 33 years, Sarah had devoted herself to caring for others. Nurses were sheathed in compassion, and she wore that shield diligently, spending countless hours tending to patients in the charming Midwestern town she called home. Yet, behind the comforting facade, a gnawing loneliness often lingered. The more she poured herself into her demanding shifts at the hospital, the more she felt stuck within the shadow of Liz, their family's golden child, effortlessly gliding through life with accolades and admiration. Now, this phone call had shattered her already fragile sense of belonging. Sarah hesitated, caught between her sister's pride and her own bitter disappointment. Why hadn't she known? Was she not worthy enough to be part of the family's joyful moments? The memory of their childhood laughing and confiding in their shared dreams now felt irrevocably severed. She could almost hear their youthful promises of always being there for each other echoing in her mind, taunting her with the ideal they used to share. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The past week had been torture, each day a blend of clinical care and emotional upheaval. And then came the bombshell. A mutual friend whispered the shocking truth about Liz's marriage. Her husband was in dire financial trouble, and the lavish wedding had been nothing more than a facade, a distraction from their crumbling reality. Sarah felt waves of conflicting emotions crash over her, betrayal and sorrow intertwined, giving birth to a fierce determination. What had they built their lives upon? Was it all just smoke and mirrors? The thought of confronting Liz filled her with dread. Could she risk the fragile relationship they still had? Could she put her heart on the line and take action against this deceptive illusion life that had unfolded? A tumultuous knot twisted her stomach at the thought of pointing out the cracks in her sister's perfect world. Yet the loyal sister inside her cried out for reason, yearning to mend the broken bond that threatened to shatter altogether. In quiet moments, Sarah could hear the echoes of childhood laughter, igniting a desire for the sisterly connection that once seemed unbreakable. The stakes were impossibly high. How could she intervene without extinguishing the last remnants of warmth between them? As tension mounted and emotions swelled within her, Sarah stood at a precipice, heart racing, hands trembling. The decision loomed before her: dive into the murky waters of Liz's life or retreat to the safety of her own solitude, allowing the perfect facade to collapse on its own. The weight of her choice threatened to crush her, leaving her breathless. Would she have the courage to confront the truth, or would she watch silently as Liz's illusion crumbled around them both? Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness that clung to her like a heavy fog. Each day at the hospital merged into a monotonous blur, where the faces of patients blended together, and the demands of her profession felt more like a burden than a calling. As her co-workers chatted about their lives, Sarah remained distant, often lost in thought, replaying Liz's triumphant words over and over. On a particularly chaotic shift, a patient's code blue interrupted her thoughts. Adrenaline surged through her as she and the team jumped into action. The rhythm of their clinical practice stirred something deep within her, a part that still found purpose in saving lives. Yet, as they resuscitated the patient, a voice in her head whispered that this urgency was a veneer masking the fear of facing her own life circumstances. Why could she save others but felt utterly powerless in her own family matters? Once the patient was stable, Sarah took a moment to breathe in the sterile, clinical air of the hospital. It wasn't just about her profession anymore, it was a choice about her life, her connections. She realized that allowing Liz's happiness to dictate her own sense of worth was a trap. A new resolve blossomed, one that called out for her to reclaim her narrative. That evening, Sarah sat in the quiet of her small apartment, the TV droning in the background, but her mind was laser-focused. No longer was she going to be merely a passive witness in her family's drama. She pulled out a notebook, the blank pages staring back at her like an invitation to a new beginning. The reflections of her childhood faded into clearer memories, dreams etched in laughter and shared moments, now muddled with uncertainty. What qualities had defined her all these years? Compassion, resilience, an unwavering commitment to others, but hadn't she forgotten her own needs? With every word she wrote, she felt a flood of self-awareness wash over her. She penned her feelings of betrayal but also recognized that they would not define her. Instead, they could fuel her desire to be honest with Liz, to confront the untruth that had unfolded. That moment shifted something fundamental for Sarah. She would confront her sister, not just about the deception, but about their relationship. Was it merely a performance, or was there still an ember of genuine love to be found? Perhaps this confrontation could be the pathway to honesty, and opportunity to rekindle the bond they had seemingly lost. Through her notes, Sarah discovered motivation she hadn't known she possessed. She crafted a plan to speak with Liz, intending to blend both compassion and honesty. However, doubt still lingered like a stubborn shadow. Would Liz reciprocate this bravery? Would she understand the love that inspired Sarah's honesty? With every passing day, Sarah felt herself subtly transforming. She started taking small steps in her professional life too, volunteering for new responsibilities, engaging with colleagues and patients alike as she waded through her own emotional landscape. As the weekend approached, a series of messages from Liz popped up on her phone, questioning why Sarah hadn't responded since the wedding announcement. Each ping sent a ripple of anxiety through her. Moments like these challenged her resolve. Did she want to remain a passive observer or step into the role of an active participant in her life? She took a deep breath, staring at the screen, her heart a cacophony of trepidation and courage. It was now or never. She could unravel the facade Liz had built or risk losing her altogether. The stakes had never been higher, and Sarah felt a decisive reckoning looming. The moment of truth had arrived, and with it, an unshakable determination flickered within her. Would she allow fear and uncertainty to guide her decision, or would she face the reality she had avoided for so long? Slowly, she began to type, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as she sought the courage to confront Liz. What awaited on the other side of that conversation could either heal or sever them irrevocably. Yet, she knew, deep down, that a choice had to be made, and she was ready to face whatever consequences might come. Sarah paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The blinking cursor echoed her anxious heartbeat. She was finally ready to engage with the tumult that lay between her and Liz. The past few days had seen her oscillate between doubt and a burgeoning sense of empowerment. The very act of typing out her feelings felt monumental, as if she were unearthing hidden parts of herself, pieces long buried under the weight of obligation and disappointment. With a deep inhale, she sketched out her thoughts. I've been thinking a lot about our relationship. The wedding announcement caught me off guard, and I need to be honest about how I feel. This wasn't just about confronting Liz, it was about reclaiming her voice, the voice that had often been silenced by familial expectations. Each keystroke resonated with both trepidation and the resolve to step into her own narrative. After sending the message, an unnerving stillness enveloped her apartment. The silence was deafening, leaving room for doubt to bubble up. What if Liz dismissed her concerns? What if their relationship was forever altered? These fears clouded her thoughts, but beneath them, Sarah felt an urge for clarity. The fog of indecision that had permeated her life was finally beginning to lift. Following that moment, she recognized that this was not just a personal confrontation, it also transcended into her professional life. Returning to work, she embraced the hectic pace of the hospital with renewed vigor. Each patient encounter felt like a metaphor for her own journey. She stood resolutely as a nurse, advocating for those unable to voice their needs, her assertiveness mirroring the courage she was cultivating within herself. On an especially demanding shift, a particularly distraught family caught her attention. The patient was stable, but the atmosphere was thick with anxiety. The family huddled together, whispering nervously among themselves, their expressions painted with fear for the unknown. Witnessing their turmoil struck a chord deep within her. It reflected her own struggles, the anguish of unspoken truths between her and Liz. It presented an opportunity, an echo of her own runaway feelings. With a surge of confidence, Sarah stepped into the room. She spoke with compassion, addressing the family's concerns, but also drew upon her own emotional state as a beacon of strength. Their desperate eyes met hers, and she fortified her resolve with every word. "You will get through this," she said, her tone firm yet nurturing. In that moment, as they thanked her, Sarah felt an infusion of purpose surge through her. She was doing what she loved, but from a place of authentic emotional engagement. As days progressed and Sarah awaited a response from Liz, the narrative in her mind began to shift. No longer was she revolving around the chaos of others' lives, she was emerging with her own intuitive clarity. It became evident that the confrontation would happen when it would happen, but she was ready to face Liz not just as a sister but as a woman resilient in the truth of her feelings. The arrival of Liz's message, weeks after the wedding, was not the anticipated relief Sarah had hoped for. Instead, it left her feeling unmoored as Liz's words flashed across the screen. "I thought we moved on. You need to stop dwelling on the past." The response felt like an emotional slap, not just a dismissal, but an affirmation of their chasm. The confrontation was suddenly necessary, but the stakes were higher than ever. Taking a moment to gather herself, Sarah reminded herself that she was not a passive player in her own life. She would rise to this challenge, unwilling to let past grievances dictate her future. The rift between them was wide, but the courage to bridge it lay firmly within her. Would this turmoil ignite their bond anew, or would it fuel further division? As she contemplated the next steps, Sarah felt an unexpected clarity guiding her. It was not just about confronting Liz anymore, it was about unearthing the resilience within herself. Time was running out, she needed to seize the narrative, or risk watching her relationship disintegrate further. Would she have the strength to assert her needs, or would she crumble under the weight of fear yet again? The moment of truth was looming, a reckoning on the horizon that hinted at the depths of change waiting to unfurl. The time had come to truly confront what lay between them, and it felt more urgent than ever. The hum of hospital machinery filled the air, a stark contrast to the tempest swirling within Sarah as she prepared for her next shift. Each beep resonated through her, reminding her of the battles fought and the healing yet to unfold. Today, however, her mind was not solely attuned to the rhythms of her nursing duties. Instead, it was centered on Liz, her heart inextricably tethered to the complexities of their frayed relationship. As she donned her scrubs, Sarah caught a glimpse of herself in the locker room mirror. The reflection staring back was an evolving image, an unfamiliar version of herself that had begun to emerge in her attempts to foster authentic connections. She was no longer the wary sister tiptoeing around confrontation, but rather a woman ready to confront her truths. Still, a flicker of doubt lingered. Was she truly equipped for the fight that lay ahead? The day passed with a whirlwind of activity, patients arriving in need of her care, their stories interwoven with their pain. Yet, as she attended to them, Sarah couldn't help but wrestle with her own secrets, those hidden beneath layers of expectation. She concocted a plan, strategizing the confrontation with Liz that felt imminent. It wasn't just about expressing her feelings, it was about breaking free from the suffocating legacy of their early lives. During a break, Sarah found herself in the break room with her colleagues, a usual sanctuary filled with light banter and laughter. But a sense of detachment pulled her back into her thoughts. As she observed their camaraderie, a familiar pang of isolation gripped her. It was the very mindset she wanted to escape, the feeling of being an outsider even in shared spaces. "Hey, Sarah. You okay?" a coworker asked, her tone warm and inviting. "Yeah, just thinking," Sarah replied, forcing a smile, but the heaviness clung to her like a second skin. "Thinking about what?" The curiosity in her coworker's voice pierced through, and Sarah caught herself initiating a burst of vulnerability. "About family," she finally muttered, uncertain if she'd gone too far. "Yeah, always complicated," the coworker said, a knowing nod passing between them before laughter filled the air again. Engagement like this, though minuscule, was a reminder of the connections she yearned for. But Sarah was acutely aware that albeit powerful, casual exchanges couldn't fill the chasms in her life. No, it was time to address the earthquake rumbling beneath her relationship with Liz, to unearth the emotional vulnerabilities she kept under wraps for far too long. The shift came to an end, and as she packed her things, Sarah's determination solidified. She would confront Liz that evening, armed with the compassion she had shown to her patients, yet equally fortified by her newfound understanding of herself. It wasn't just about needing answers or reclamation, it was about forging a bond founded on honesty, not resentments or hidden fears. Once home, Sarah's hands trembled as she composed a text to Liz. "Can we talk tonight? I need to clear the air between us." She hit send, her heart racing as she considered the implications. With the screen dimming, she sank onto the sofa, thoughts whirling. If Liz responded negatively, it would only confirm what she feared about the rift in their relationship. But a deeper part of her whispered to embrace the uncertainty. The stakes were undeniably high, the outcome unfathomable, yet she felt invigorated by the prospect of risking what remained of their connection. Minutes dragged into hours, and just as despair began to creep in, her phone lit up with Liz's name. "Fine. Meet me at Mom's place," the text read. A cascade of emotions surged through Sarah: anticipation, fear, hope. Here it was, the moment that could reshape their bond irrevocably, either healing or fracturing it further. She felt the weight of the confrontation ahead, the noise of potential aftermath swirling around her head. Would this encounter bring the catharsis she so desperately sought, or would old wounds rip open anew? Gathering her thoughts before the meeting, she whispered a phrase she hoped would anchor her resolve: "Listen first, speak your truth." She had carved her path through the chaos of her career, and now it was time to confront the most complex relationship of her existence. With one final glance at her reflection, she steeled herself. The time had come for authenticity, and with it, the understanding that bravery was inherently intertwined with vulnerability. Each step toward her mother's house felt monumental, each heartbeat a reminder of what lay ahead. The door swung open to reveal not just her sister, but the full tapestry of their shared past laid bare in a single moment. Would they reclaim their sisterhood, or were they destined to drift further apart in the emotional wilderness? As Sarah stepped into her mother's house, the air thick with unspoken words, a palpable tension electrified the atmosphere. The familiar scent of her mother's floral air fresheners mixed with an undercurrent of nostalgia and resentment tugged at her heart. Liz stood in the living room, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt, her face an unreadable mask. The years of distance felt like a chasm, deepened further by unresolved arguments and silences that had turned into habits. Sarah felt once more like that timid child who had constantly sought approval but instead found disappointment. But today was different. She was no longer a passive participant in her own narrative. "Hey," Liz finally said, her tone dipped in cautious surprise. The single word hung in the air like an unripe fruit, heavy with judgment and longing. "Hey," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She positioned herself directly before her sister, determined to face her instead of letting the awkwardness drive her backward. "Thanks for meeting me." "Sure. What's this about?" Liz's gaze flicked around the room, avoiding Sarah's direct stare, suggesting that she already feared the confrontation. "It's about us," Sarah began, attempting to summon the eloquence she had practiced in her mind. "I've felt like we've been walking on eggshells. It's not just the past, it feels like we've been sideswiped by it. Can we talk about what happened between us?" A faint smirk crossed Liz's lips, one that gnawed at Sarah's patience. "Oh, I'm ready for the lecture about how I should have been there for you, huh? Didn't I make it to Dad's funeral? That counted for something." "I'm not here to blame you," Sarah shot back, her pulse quickening. "But I think we both have things we need to say if we want to move forward. You can't bury everything and call it a day." "Burying things was your specialty," Liz countered, her voice rising. "You act like you know me, but I dropped everything when you decided to be the perfect daughter. And what did I get in return? You excluded me from your life again." Sarah felt the burn of Liz's words, but instead of retreating into defensiveness, she inhaled deeply, focusing her thoughts. "I was afraid of what you would think. I still am. I wanted to project an image of strength because I thought you needed that from me. But look where that led us. Neither of us is happy. I chose to get married without you, Liz burst out, frustration etched across her face, her voice tinged with sorrow and bitterness. It was perfect. You didn't have to be there to know that. Our family was beautifully flawed, even without you. The bluntness of Liz's confession hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She felt raw, that instinct to defend herself raced to the forefront of her mind. So, you truly believe you could just erase our past and move on? Sometimes you have to, Liz challenged, her defiance palpable. It's easier to just let go than to keep dragging the dead weight. I'm not waiting for you to make amends. Why can't you understand that? Once more, Sarah was confronted with her sister's pain. Each exchange carved deeper into her understanding of their fractured bond. I want to understand. I want to break this cycle of hurt. We've lost so much already. Can't we start fresh? As silence enveloped them, Sarah realized that this moment could either solidify their estrangement or lead them back to connection. The thought frightened her even more than their impending vulnerability. Liz, I am willing to be open. Will you? Could vulnerability, once a source of contention, be their pathway forward? Would Liz meet her halfway, or was she simply wearing brick armor, unwilling to let anyone in? Sarah felt the stakes rise with every deep breath she took, her heart pounding against the weight of potential reconciliation. As they stood in that liminal space between hope and despair, Liz's gaze softened for a fleeting moment, but it was too early to tell if redemption was possible. Would this be the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship, or merely another painful reminder of the walls built over years of silence? The air thickened with anticipation. The future of their bond hung in the balance, precarious and uncertain. Then, Liz seemed to reluctantly lean closer. What are you even willing to risk for us? Sarah's response coiled tightly in her chest, ready to unfurl in a profound revelation. The question hung in the air like a challenge, piercing through the tension that veiled the room. Sarah's heart raced, a visceral mixture of fear and resolve twisted in her stomach. What was she willing to risk? Everything. The truth unfurled in her mind like a roadmap, highlighting an undeniable path littered with her unspoken truths and dimmed dreams. I'm willing to risk my fear of losing you, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. The weight of those words pressed against her chest, threatening to crack open a lifetime of carefully constructed walls. With newfound clarity, she realized that denying herself this moment would only prolong their suffering. Liz's eyes narrowed, evoking a defensive instinct within Sarah. You really think that's enough? Taking a step back, Sarah took a deep breath, allowing her vulnerability to settle into a fragile layer of strength. It's a start. I want to be real with you, Liz. For so long, I was focused on being what everyone else needed. I never stopped to think about what I needed. Penned in with Liz's bitterness, Sarah tasted the bitterness herself. She had to confront her inability to assert her identity. The years of striving to be the perfect daughter, the perfect sister, had left her hollow. Yet in that moment, she recognized that perfection was an illusion, a mask that hindered authenticity. Liz crossed her arms tight against her chest, the act a physical barricade that heightened the tension in the room. And what do you need? She challenged, her tone still steeped in skepticism. The question sounded almost like a taunt, yet it ignited the resolve within Sarah. I need acceptance. From you, and from myself, Sarah responded, her conviction flickering like a flame against the wind. I need us to acknowledge our past, to face it together, and to give ourselves the chance to feel whole again. For the first time, she felt a surge of agency envelop her. It was as if she was awakening after a long slumber among her own fears. Yet, would that awakening be enough for Liz? I can't do the emotional gymnastics you expect from me, Sarah, Liz said, her voice quivering slightly. If you want a sister, I need to know you mean it. This isn't just an impulsive moment for you to realize you want things to be different. Sarah's heart sank, but she stood resolute. I don't want to just ease back into our old lives. That's not enough anymore. I'm ready to dig deeper, to actually work towards a relationship, to confront our shared realities, and whatever that entails, even if it uncovers pain. The suggestion of vulnerability seemed to dash against the walls between them, and yet, the fracture was visible. Liz's defenses wavered, crumbling just a bit. And if what we uncover is worse than what we've already been through? Liz asked, a hint of fear threading through her voice. I think suffering alone hurts worse than suffering together, Sarah replied, surprising herself with the clarity of her statement. I want to be brave enough to step into that discomfort, even if it's difficult. The air tingled with tension as Liz processed Sarah's declaration, a flicker of recognition sparking in her eyes. Meanwhile, the storm of doubt brewed within Sarah. Was she really ready for this confrontation of wounds long buried? The thought of reaching for closeness sent tremors through her spine, yet she clung to that spark of hope. Just as Liz seemed to consider Sarah's words, the doorbell rang shrilly, slicing through the moment. Their gaze shifted toward the door, and Sarah felt an unsettling pit form in her stomach. Liz's mask slipped back into place, as vulnerability fled her features. Who is that? Liz asked, her defensive walls rising once more. With a gut-wrenching plunge into uncertainty, Sarah felt time slow down. Would this visitor disrupt the fragile moment they were teetering on? Or perhaps it could unveil answers they hadn't anticipated? As she readied herself for whatever lay beyond the threshold, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging fear that the universe often threw curveballs at the most vulnerable junctures. What or who was waiting on the other side? As the door swung open, the air seemed to shift sharply, revealing a woman who effortlessly commanded attention. A confident smile danced across her lips, though it felt more like a masquerade than genuine warmth. Sarah's stomach twisted into knots. Recognition washed over her. Maya, the friend who had drifted into Liz's life like an uninvited storm. Hello, you too. So glad to see you. I just thought you'd want to know that we had a wedding. Maya proclaimed, her voice dripping with pride. Sarah felt the weight of her earlier determination collapsing under the unexpected news. Maya beamed and continued, can you believe it? Liz and I got married last week, and it was absolutely perfect. The announcement echoed in the room, a stunning disruption that pushed Sarah back into the shadows of her uncertainty. Liz's expression faltered momentarily, a flash of surprise softening her defense, but she quickly masked it with a practiced smile that felt rehearsed. Sarah's heart sank deeper as Liz stepped forward, excitement flickering in her gaze, a stark contrast to the vulnerability they had just attempted to unravel together. Wow. That's incredible, Maya, Liz stammered, her unease betrayed by the upbeat inflection that followed. I didn't know you were planning anything. Maya waved her hand dismissively. Oh, it was all last minute. But we just knew it was right, you know? A small gathering on the beach, just us two and a couple of friends. We even had that sunset backdrop we always talked about. Her recounting was animated, each word stoking a fire in Sarah's gut. While Maya basked in the glory of her impromptu romance, Sarah was caught in a tempest of emotions. The walls she had dared to breach with Liz now felt richer and more complex to dismantle. Was Liz's affection for Maya, her sudden marriage, merely a reaction against Sarah's recent revelation? It was evident that the moment Sarah had anticipated, where they would confront their buried emotions and share their truths, had vanished, replaced by Maya's triumphant storytelling. In her mind, Sarah wondered what she was even doing standing in a room so eclipsed by someone else's joy. Was she slipping back into the shadows of fear and doubt, allowing distractions to derail her growth? I mean, don't you think you might have rushed things? Sarah found her voice, laced with a vulnerability she was desperately trying to conceal. However, the words felt like a confrontation she shouldn't have made. They rode the edges of jealousy and hurt. Maya raised an eyebrow, surprise mixed with disdain. Rushed? That's a funny word coming from you. You were always the planner, the one who never took chances. Sarah's heart raced at the sudden challenge. Did she want to be painted as the cautious sister forever? The thought stung deeper than expected, and she realized that, contrary to her desires, she had allowed herself to become a bystander in her own reality. Forcing herself to breathe, she reminded herself of the clarity she'd searched for during her conversation with Liz. With what was left of her confidence, Sarah looked at her sister, who maintained a faraway look. Perhaps she was entangled in her own thoughts about this unexpected intrusion. "I hope you both are happy," Sarah said, the words sinking into the charged atmosphere. "Thanks. We really are," Maya replied, a glimmer of her earlier self-satisfaction creeping back. Turning back to Liz, Sarah noticed the glint of doubt peeking through her sister's facade. "What do you think, Liz? Does this make a difference in what we discussed?" The room felt charged, time stretching thin. Liz hesitated, her emotions visibly swirling beneath her composed exterior, and Sarah braced herself for the revelation that would determine everything. But just as Liz prepared to speak, the phone rang, drawing them once more into silence. Would this news be another shift, or the moment that would confirm their fragile connection? As Sarah's gaze flickered between Liz and Maya, the questions loomed large. Could she truly rebuild their bond amid chaos? Would Liz choose vulnerability over the glossy facade of new love? The tension hung thick in the air, heavy with potential for discovery, both devastating and enlightening. As the phone rang, the abrupt sound sliced through the tension like a knife. Sarah could feel her heart pounding against her ribcage, the blood rushing in her ears. Both Liz and Maya refrained from reaching for their devices, as if they collectively understood that the moment would not afford them the luxury of distraction. Time hung suspended, an excruciating pause blending anticipation with dread. The ringing finally ceased, yet no one spoke. Liz darted her gaze towards Sarah, a mixture of concern and uncertainty reflecting in her blue eyes. The gravity of this moment extended far beyond small talk. It was a window into the truths lurking beneath their fragile relationships. "Should I get it?" "It might be important," Liz suggested, her voice a whisper that scarcely breached the air. "You can always call back," Maya interjected, her tone unwavering. "We have more pressing matters to discuss." Forcing herself to breathe through the sudden surge of frustration, Sarah realized that Maya wasn't merely an obstacle, she was an embodiment of everything Sarah had not dared to confront. Instead of standing in Maya's shadow, Sarah yearned to step into the light with Liz. But how could she bridge the gap, standing face to face with this confident woman who seemed to have effortlessly sewn herself into the tapestry of Liz's life? "Liz, can we talk about this?" she asked hesitantly, the weight of her own voice feeling too heavy even as she uttered the words. "Talk about what?" "You're the one who has been distancing yourself," Maya jumped in, her defiant gaze locked on Sarah. "You, of all people, shouldn't be throwing stones." "Isn't that right, Liz?" Silence enveloped the room once again, a suffocating blanket. Liz's eyes shifted between the two women, caught in a web woven from their shared history. Sarah cursed the apprehension fluttering in her stomach, a bitter reminder of the cautious sister who had shied away from risk. "Maybe I don't want to be cautious anymore," Sarah said, her voice gaining strength. "I've let fear and insecurity dictate too much of my life. I just want to know where I stand with you, Liz." The room held its breath, as if anticipating Liz's answer. Sarah felt exposed, bearing a crucial part of herself that she had barely allowed herself to acknowledge. Facing the uncertain territory of vulnerability, she felt a fierce determination rising within her. "I thought you understood," Liz murmured, her expression torn between guilt and empathy. I didn't know how to resolve everything." "Marrying Maya isn't a resolution," Sarah challenged, her frustration sharpening into focus. "It feels like running away instead of confronting what's real between us." Maya's laugh was laced with disbelief. "Oh please, Sarah. You're acting like I'm the villain in this narrative. I'm here, going for what makes sense to me. Isn't that what you've always told Liz to do?" Beneath the layers of zeal defense, Sarah recognized a latent truth. Maya was right about one thing. Sarah had always celebrated ambition and bold choices. Now, it would serve her well to embrace that same ethos. "Maybe it's time I adopted the same boldness," Sarah said slowly, more to herself than to anyone else, treading new ground. Boldness meant not shying away when faced with a challenge. Perhaps we all need to reevaluate what truly matters to us. Liz's gaze flickered with recognition. "Then let us take that step, together. No more avoiding." No more hidden emotions. As the pieces of their fractured connection began to fall into place, Sarah caught the glimmer of determination in Liz's eyes. They could uncover what lay beneath the surface, perhaps finally unveiling truths long buried. Yet with Maya still entwined in their dynamic, the unpredictability lingered and Sarah found herself standing at a precipice, ready to leap. Together, then, Sarah said resolutely, feeling the stirring of hope for their future. But just as the tension began to lift, the phone rang again, a disruptive sound echoing ominously in the background. This time, it felt like a callback to the drama waiting to unfold. What new revelation would the phone bring? The moment felt charged with potential, the stakes rising once more. Would they finally be prepared for the truths lurking just beyond reach, or would the outside world encroach once again to shatter their renewed bond? The phone rang for a third time, each ring echoing in Sarah's mind like a ticking clock looming over them. A rush of adrenaline surged through her, challenging her to maintain focus on the women around her instead of the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. She had to choose, confront the tension in the room or let the external distraction derail her newfound resolve. Answer it, Liz urged, her voice tinged with urgency. But Maya shook her head, eyes narrowing. Forget the phone. We need to find some clarity here. As the sound quieted again, Sarah's heart raced with the realization that clarity was exactly what had so long eluded her. No, this matters, she declared, her voice stronger now. Let us take the call. We can face whatever's coming. Liz looked at Sarah, uncertainty etched on her face. But Sarah held her ground, ready to take action, ready to dive deeper into the storm that had marked their lives for too long. With a mix of determination and dread, Liz reached for her phone, glancing at the screen. It's my sister. A slight hesitation lingered, but she swiped to answer. Hey. Liz began, but her sister's voice cut through the atmosphere with surprising exuberance. You won't believe it. We got married. Just the two of us. A fidget of nervous energy buzzed through the air. Sarah watched Liz's expression shift from surprise to disbelief. Married? What do you mean, without me? Maya crossed her arms, a sly smile creeping across her lips. Sarah could feel the existing tension morph into something sharper. Liz's silence was deafening, her shock palpable. What do you mean it was perfect? Liz, we talked about this. Liz's voice rose, accusation threading through her words. Sarah's mind raced with thoughts, each more complex than the last. There it was, the decision moments she had been avoiding dragging into the spotlight. Every unspoken expectation and murky feeling that had clouded their relationship now rippling out in waves. This isn't just about you anymore, Maya interjected, the confidence tinged with contempt. You can't dictate how she should feel about her life. Something within Sarah snapped, she couldn't let this moment dissolve into a passive silence. But this is exactly why we can't keep dodging the truth. You both care about each other, and if you're not honest, then what's the point? The intensity in the room spiked as Liz's focus shifted onto Sarah, and for a moment, Sarah felt a flicker of understanding between them, raw and terrifying. You don't get it. You've always been so cautious. You hide from decisions while I'm trying to live my truth, Liz shot back, hurt evident in her voice. Sarah's heart sank, but a seed of resolve took root. Maybe it's time I stop avoiding this. I've let fear dictate my choices. But I want us to confront this together. Liz paused, processing the gravity of Sarah's declaration. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to be a part of this conversation, without pretense, without fear, Sarah replied, feeling her chest tighten. No more shadows, no more hiding. Whatever this new reality is, we can face it. The silence that followed thrummed with tension. Maya's dismissal of Sarah began to falter. Their battle over Liz was momentarily interrupted by the weight of vulnerability. Sarah could sense the impossibility before them. Would they unite to tackle their emotional impasses or fracture even further apart? Liz, once we dig into this, there's no turning back, Sarah warned, allowing a flicker of doubt to surface. Fine, Liz said finally, determination shimmering in her eyes. But if we're doing this, it has to be real. No more evasions. Just as Sarah prepared to voice her next thought, the phone sputtered one last time. Liz's sister's buoyant voice had returned, this time dripping with an unsettling cheerfulness. "You're going to love the surprise we planned for the wedding celebration." A chill skated down Sarah's spine, a recognition dawning that their precarious balance was now tipped into uncertain territory. They were pulling at threads that could unravel not just dreams, but the very fabric of their connections. What surprise awaited her? And would that finally expose the truths they desperately needed to confront, or would it shatter everything they had been trying to weave back together? As Sarah steadied her breath, the uncertainty crackled in the air like a live wire. The potential for upheaval loomed large as the cheerful voice on the other end of the line continued its enthusiastic monologue. Liz's face shifted through expressions: shock, confusion, and a flicker of panic as she battled the emotional tempest pulsating between them. Surprise? What are you talking about? Liz's frustration spilled over, her previously unyielding composure faltering under the pressure. The voice continued, completely unfazed. "The surprise involves a few very close friends and family. Everyone's so excited. We want a big celebration to honor the love you both have." "No!" Liz exclaimed, her voice sharp. "This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. It's too much. You can't just plan a celebration without asking me first." In that moment of exasperation, clarity pierced through Sarah's whirlwind of thoughts. It wasn't about the wedding surprise or even Liz's new life with Maya anymore. It was deeply personal, about waking up from a long slumber and claiming her own truth. "Liz, let us take a moment," Sarah interjected, her voice steadier than before. "This isn't just about the wedding or our histories. This is about us. We've been swept along by everyone else's expectations for too long. It's time we set our own course." Liz's eyes flicked to Sarah, uncertainty giving way to a moment of acknowledgement. "What do you mean?" "I mean we can choose how we want this to unfold. Let us stop tiptoeing around each other. If we want a genuine relationship, we need to tear away the facades. We need to push through the discomfort." It felt monumental, this pivot toward authenticity. The unification of their truths felt tangible, shimmering just within reach, yet she understood the risks. Would Liz join her on this journey? Would she be willing to navigate the rocky terrain of their unresolved feelings? As Sarah looked at Liz, she noticed a shift in her sister's gaze, a hint of vulnerability, mixed with fear, as the weight of the past pressed down around them. "Fine," Liz snapped, frustration edging her voice. "We can talk about everything, but I want to apologize for my choices. I want to embrace my life fully, including my marriage to Maya." "That's not what I want you to do," Sarah replied firmly, feeling the warmth of courage envelop her. "I want you to embrace our relationship too. We've spent years trying to avoid the turmoil between us. Let us break down the walls we've built." Liz's demeanor softened ever so slightly as she mulled over Sarah's words. The tension in the room shifted. No longer was it a battleground, but a shared space ripe with potential growth. "What if this does break us?" Liz whispered, the fear evident in her tone. "Then at least we will know where we stand," Sarah replied, her heart racing, filled with fierce determination. "Maybe we'll find that the foundation we build will be stronger than we ever imagined." A silence lingered between them, thick with unspoken feelings. Sarah wanted to reach out, to bridge the emotional distance with compassion and honesty, yet she also recognized the need to hold the space for Liz to arrive at her own conclusions. Finally, Liz sighed, the weight of resignation evident in her shoulders. "I don't want to lose you. But I don't even know where to begin." "Let us start with understanding each other," Sarah suggested, her tone gentle yet resolute. "Let us peel back the layers and face the mess together." In that moment, they both felt the fraying edges of their bond tightening, rekindling sparks of connection that had been long extinguished. "I'll try," Liz said quietly, her voice trembling as she took the first brave step forward. "I don't want a facade anymore. I want realness with you." As they connected eye to eye, Sarah felt something shift within her, a warmth expanded in her chest, not just from Liz's willingness but from her own sense of agency. Their relationship would still be a work in progress, but a commitment to confront these realities and evolve was the beginning of true sisterhood. From that very instant, a sense of liberation washed over them both. This meeting was no longer a battle, but a doorway, a threshold into uncharted territory where honesty reigned supreme. As uncertainty still fluttered in the air, so did the promise of unearthing their genuine selves. They sat down together, side by side, ready to rebuild. Each step now held weight, echoing through the paths of their intertwined lives, pushing them toward being relatable and understanding, crafting bonds from the foundations of sincerity. As they began disentangling their stories, their burdens slowly transformed into shared understanding, a tapestry woven from their struggles, hidden truths, and newfound respect. The world outside faded, the noise of tradition and expectation began to dim in comparison to the unity they were nurturing. With each word they exchanged, Sarah felt herself transforming. The insecurities that had weighed her down were replaced with purpose. No longer afraid to assert her needs, she grasped onto the fabric of their sisterhood, remolding it to fit the contours of their truth. Hours later, as they emerged from heartfelt conversations filled with both laughter and tears, Sarah couldn't help but realize how far she had come. She was no longer a passive observer, she was an active participant in her own life and her sister's too. Together, they had conquered barriers shaped by years of miscommunication and fear. In embracing this vulnerability, they began to shape a relationship that leaned into growth instead of frailty. The journey ahead would be neither easy nor without challenges, but armed with renewed trust and the understanding needed to face future complexities, Sarah felt poised for whatever lay ahead. As they shared their first genuine hug in what felt like a lifetime, Sarah's heart swelled with gratitude. Not just for the rekindled connection with Liz but for her own evolution through these distressing tides, proof that she didn't just exist in the shadows of others' lives but was carving out her own path, one step at a time. And beyond this newfound connection lay the promise of more, a realization that her worth wasn't tied to anyone else's choices. Sarah had finally embraced her right to shine bright, weaving her own beautiful narrative from the ashes of uncertainty. With the sun setting outside, the glow illuminated the room, crafting a serene harmony around them. This was not the end but the profound beginning of more. Their journey toward reconciliation was already unfolding splendidly. Are you inspired by Sarah's remarkable journey of transformation? You need to subscribe now to witness more exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm so more people can join our empowering community. Comment below your thoughts on Sarah's resolution and how you handle personal growth in difficult situations. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting conclusion.